What's up guys, my name is Zach with Tyrannosaurus Text, and this is part of a two video series, one about iOS 9 and the other about OS X 10.11 El Capitan. Okay, so this video is about iOS 9, but it is the public beta, version 1 in July 2015, so if you watch it anytime after that, be prepared for things to be changed, bugs to be different, just stuff like that. There'll be a less buggy version coming out in a couple of months now. But without further ado, I guess we should get started. But I do want to apologize for the fan. You might hear that throughout this video, but that's because the lens was fogging up, so it was either a fan or foggy lens. You pick. So without further ado, this is Tyrannosaurus Text. So let's get started. As you can see with the lock screen, there are very minimal changes, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's go into each app individually and each feature to see what is different. And to start off, we're going to go with the App Store. And we're going to go in order to all the apps. And while this App Store app is taking a little while to load, here we are. As you can see in the App Store, there are very minimal to, if any, changes. And now that might change in the later beta, but we'll just have to wait and see. And now as we move on to Weather, the Weather app is virtually the same as well. However, there are a few glitches, and those glitches I have reported to Apple, and hopefully that'll be fixed. As you can see, like the letters are running together, and that's not really beautiful like Apple is typically known for. But we'll see what happens in later betas. Now we're going to move on to the Camera app, and as you see in the Camera app, there are very few changes, if at all, any. So it's pretty much the same as in iOS 8 as well. And after this, we're going to go on to the Calculator app, and pretty much my first row of apps are all the same as in iOS 8. On into the Calendar app, which is very much the same as in the first four apps, and there are really little to no changes at all whatsoever. So, not really changes there. And as we move into Safari, which is my next app on my screen, as you can see, the tabs are pretty much the same, along with a lot of the other stuff. As you can, like in OS X and iOS 9, the B and the I, as in my two bookmark tabs, are slightly different. I guess that's a new change. Now, it used to be like a little compass-looking thing to go along with the Safari thing, but that has been changed, at least in OS X, and it appears in iOS 9 as well. Other than that, there are really no changes hardly at all in Safari, and really, I don't see a problem with that. Safari looks pretty good in iOS 8, so I don't have a problem with that. And as we move on to Maps, this is the first app we've gone through that has significant upgrades. As you can see, it has a lot of little pins, and those are restaurants. Now, I will say though, in my town, I do have more restaurants than two. So, just to clarify, we're not that poor. But, as you can see, the notification on the screen says transitive information is not available for HEPA. So that's kind of saying, I have it on transit, so that's kind of saying that, there's no transit hubs in around here, no buses, no anything. And the transit directions that they do have are still very limited. As you can see on this little pop-down menu, if you click on transit and then into the other apps, it will pop up train stations. I have one of those within about 30 minutes of my house, but walking directions are probably about 6.5 hours or 6 hours and 15 minutes, however you want to look at it. Depends on how fast you walk, I guess. But if you go up to New York, which is what I'm doing on the map right now, you can see that they have a little transit symbol. Now that means that Apple has mapped out all the transit routes, and as you can see in the bluish purple, those are the train lines. And as you get closer, you can see the subway lines that go in and out of the city and through the city. And this is kind of the way Google Maps does with transit lines, so you know where you're going to go and what stop you need to get off on. Kind of help transit and make Apple Maps more of a competitor to Google Maps than it previously was. I discovered this feature as you go into the 3D view. You click on 3D map while you're in transit, it doesn't show 3D structures. Now that may be because it only happens in satellite or hybrid mode, so I transitioned it to satellite mode, which I don't even see a hybrid mode, so they might have done away with that. I don't know, I'll do some research into that later. But then you can see the 3D map, and it hasn't disappeared, it's just been a little weird, I guess you could say. Now we're going to move on to Mail, and Mail has some slight differences. First off, in iOS 8, the search bar was at the very top of the screen, and now in iOS 9, it's hidden at the top of the screen. So if you scroll down slightly with your finger, you can see the little search box pop up, and it works the same as in iOS 8, but it's just a more design thing. Also, you can see if you swipe to the left where it would say read or unread, it comes with a little image. Next, we're going to move on to Clock, and Clock is another one of those apps that really hasn't changed all that much, if at all. You can see it now supports the same system preferences across all platforms, but it's not very different. Now, the same cannot be said about Notes, however, because Notes has received the biggest transformation since the introduction of Notes when it first came out. First off, you can view attachments if you have attachments in any of your notes. Next, you can view them by the account that you type them on or the device that you type them on. As you can see, most of mine are on Gmail, but if I go on my iPhone, there's none there. However, if I go to iCloud, I can start a new note, and you see there's a little plus sign. When clicking on the plus sign, it turns into an X, and you're given options. By clicking on the two A's, you're sent to formatting, which you can change headlines and bulleted lists. You click on the checkbox, it works like checkboxes do in reminders. Very simple. Images, you can insert an image, and if you notice the little pop-up for the image, that's changed, and I'll get into that in a second. Another thing that's changed is you can now draw your own things to put in your notes, and you simply click your marker or pen, and you click done, and it adds it to your notes. Now back to what I was saying about the little pop-up menu. Now across all of iOS 9, the new pop-up menu looks like this. It has more rounded edges, a lighter font. It's very, very nice. I like it. It's across all apps that are supported this, and even Twitter. Twitter even works like that, and I think that's a very nice improvement. But Notes, that's about it, so let's move on to Compass. Compass is pretty much the same. There's not really any differences. You still have to calibrate it, which I didn't want to do right now, so I just skipped that. But it is good to calibrate it. Passbook has been changed to Wallet to include more passes and store cards, but it's still pretty much the same, other than the icon. FaceTime is another app that is very, very, very similar to the apps before it, and there's really not a difference whatsoever. As you can see, it looks pretty much the same. Voice memos is another instance of this. It's not going to change now, might change later, but right now it's good. We're just going to tweak it a little better. So voice memos hasn't been changed whatsoever at all. iTunes Store is the same way as the App Store. There's very, very minimal changes, if at all any, and still works the same. And I personally would prefer iTunes and Music to be included in one app in iOS 9, but you see that didn't happen. Now let's take a quick look to multitasking right here. And as you can see, it works the same in iOS 8. You just swipe up to delete the apps and remove them from your multitasking window. Now it's on the left instead of the right, which I personally like, but it took me a few days to get used to, so prepare for that to take a few days. And as you can see, the one problem is when you get down to a single app, it kind of like closes it in, and you can like expand it, but no further than that. So it's really hard to swipe away sometimes, but I guess it comes with one. Now we move on to reminders, and reminders have a slightly different interface with the reminder count in the top right corner, along with the addition sign on the reminders that you click instead of just tapping anywhere. And that kind of helps you to distinguish how to start a new reminder if you're new to the ecosystem. Apple Watch and the Watch app are very much the same, at least from the Apple Watch list side. Settings, however, there's a few differences. As you can see, there's a search bar, which I'm pretty sure wasn't included in iOS 8, but I could be wrong there. Correct me if I am. Also, passcode is slightly different. So if you click on passcode and turn passcode on and go to passcode options, you can make a 6-digit passcode rather than your 4-digit or numeric key, or 4-digit or the extended keyboard. Another thing is battery percentage is now in the battery icon on the battery pop-out. And low power mode. Now low power mode is in addition to the 1 hour of extra battery life iOS 9 is supposed to give you phone. It gives you up to 3, and low power mode, as you can see in the top right corner, it turns your icon to yellow to signify low power mode, and it turns off when you get fully charged, but like that. It's a very neat feature, and I think it charges your phone faster personally. Also, iCloud Drive is a new setting in iCloud, and if you can show on home screen, it's just to let you know all your files are on your home screen. It's very handy, and as you can see, I have it right there. Now we're going to move on to contacts, and as you can see at the very top of contacts, it says My Card, and this is all your information that you set when you set up your phone, all your your birthday, your address. So if you say "Take me home, Siri," it'll take you home, and it's all on the card. Now if we move on to iCloud Drive, like I said before, it's just very much what it is on the Mac. It's nothing spectacular. Now we're going to move on to music. Now music is slightly different in that it's the same as in iOS 8.4. Now iOS 8.3, if you're looking at this video, it looks very different. But if you're subscribed to Apple Music and you have iOS 8.4 later, then the music app looks exactly like this. As you can see, it has all the features you would expect it to have in a music app, like in iOS 8.4. And it also has the pop-up menu that has the new design on it, like in the rest of the thing. Also, in photos, there are 2 new albums, one for selfies and one for screenshots. Now, screenshots are self-explanatory, but the selfies are anything that you've taken with your front-facing camera. Also, it has, if you're in your photos, you can scrub through them to get a better look. Now, in phone, it's not really different whatsoever, except for one difference I haven't noticed in iOS 8, and correct me if it's there, but you can see your background through your little outline of the circles. Now, I don't know if that was there, but you can tell me if it was. I'll accept my wrong. Now, messages is the same way, not very different at all. However, it does include all the stuff that iOS 8 includes, or iOS 9 includes, like all the new features, like the pop-down menu, the keyboard, and all those things. But it looks relatively the same. And I'd like to apologize right here too, it's starting to glitch out, but in the next few apps I'll get away with it. Also, if you swipe up from the camera and microphone, it does do the same thing as iOS 8, except it has a new interface that looks a little better. Next, we're going to be moving on to News. Now, News is the next pre-installed app on the Apple Store, or on iOS 9, that is new to iOS 9. It replaces the outdated and tired newsstand that no one ever used and curates what you think you like. So you select your favorites, and then you can go to suggested channels, add any suggested channels you might like, or suggested topics like technology. Technology interests me, so I click technology. Also, it's the same thing. You can do this to tailor completely to your needs. And once you do this, it'll put them in the For You tab, which we'll get to in a minute, and that shows you all the news articles from any of those topics or channels that you might be interested in reading. You can explore the same way, and saved articles, you can save them for later viewing if you want. But the For You tab is pretty much like any news feed you've ever been on. And this new news app is more Flipboard-like than Newsstand-like, so if you like Flipboard, you can check this out. Now, the Health app isn't very different at all, although I'd never used it personally, so I don't know. If it's different, you can comment down below and tell me. Okay, the glitching has stopped, but I kind of got mixed up. So let's go to Find My iPhone, and as you can see, you have to sign in. It's not really any different. Works like Find My iPhone or any other device. And iBooks is pretty much the same as well. There's not really any difference from iOS 8.4 to iOS 9. It's the same getup that has been in iBooks for a couple of generations now. Stocks is another app that's not really changed at all. It still looks exactly the same, and if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Now, Tips. What Tips is the same thing in iOS 8. It just has iOS 9 tips, and as you can see, it'll tell you some tips like it's telling you right now, and you can check those out. Some of those I didn't even know, because it's only been a couple of days of me experimenting with this, but that's some of the stuff I was talking about with iOS 9 and the tips. Next, we're going to go to videos, and what surprised me about videos is now music videos are in there. So it's not just the videos that you purchase, but it's all your videos. And I accidentally clicked on the feedback thing, but you don't need to know about feedback if you're public release. It's a beta. Find My Friends is now included in iOS 9, which some may say is a good thing, some may say is a bad thing. It depends on if you use it, but it's pretty much the same as in iOS 8. And the same can be said for podcasts, as they're not really different at all either. It's pretty much the same thing from iOS 8 to iOS 9. There's not really a difference. Now, podcasts though, I don't know. I don't use podcasts because I'm not in college, so if you see any of that, then you might tell me. I don't know. Another thing is Game Center. Game Center is the last pre-installed app I haven't showed you. Game Center is pretty much the same as well. It's nothing special or spectacular. It's pretty much the same app. Let's clear this out real quick. Okay, next we're going to be moving on to search, Spotlight Search. And as you can see, Spotlight Search is greatly improved according to Apple. You can search for better things, more things, and also suggest apps. However, if you look in all the keyboards, if it's in lowercase mode, the keyboard's in lowercase. And if it's in uppercase mode, the keyboard's in uppercase. And that's across all apps in iOS. And the emojis are pretty much the same as well. So that's a welcome feature that iOS 9 has, is the keyboard. You can tell which mode you're in. And the multitasking, as you can see, I'm kind of getting mad at right here because you can't swipe it to the left or right. You can only swipe it up or down. Siri is now proactive in the Siri suggestions, such as your contacts and your apps and your nearby locations and your news feeds. Now, the news feeds are catered by your news app, and the locations by maps, and the contacts by your recent contacts that you tend to text more, and the apps by what you normally do during that time. However, you can click show more or show less, but you can only do certain things. Notification center is pretty much the same. Not really any changes there, although there are a couple of glitches that you might have seen just then. Other than that, really, Siri is the next big change after I get done messing with the multitasking. This is pre-recorded, so everything I say I have recorded afterwards, but as you can see, I kind of got mad there. Now Siri is a little different, and there's a glitch where she's not making a little tingling noise, but she now has better responses in my opinion. She can also do everything Siri can, but she has better responses to things you might ask her. She can answer more questions. And also Siri works on silent mode now, so now if you turn your volume ringer off, Siri doesn't make any noise whatsoever. So that way if you're in, like, say, school or something and you accidentally hold your home button, even though you shouldn't have your phone in school unless you're one of those weird schools, then, Siri won't go off, so you can get out of detention or phone taken up, whatever your school tends to do for punishment. However, I have noticed a glitch that when you turn the volume back on, that Siri doesn't make a little tingling noise. But Siri, I've really enjoyed interacting with her in iOS 9. This is one feature I forgot to tell you, and that feature is if you're in search or notifications or anything, and like say you're in an app and you get a notification from your friend that says, hey, what do you want for lunch? And you click on that notification, it sends you to the other app, like the message app or whatever, and then you can click in the top left corner, there's a back to search or back to whatever app you were in, and that works about the same. It's just handy. Instead of the little Verizon or AT&T sign, it's just handy. I noticed this when I was actually filming this video, is that the volume rockers and like a Bluetooth remote for the camera app aren't really working right, so you actually do have to touch the screen, and as soon as I get done editing this video, I'm going to send a report to Apple telling them this isn't working, and hopefully that gets fixed, because that's one of my favorite features of the camera app. But other than that, the lock screen is really the last thing we haven't touched. And the lock screen is pretty much the same, except for the introduction of the new font called San Francisco, replacing Helvetica. And this is a good font in my opinion. Control center is slightly different. And also, kind of like with your in Target and the little Target app pops up in the bottom left corner, apps that you might use early in the morning, such as your yoga app or your Instagram, like in my case, it'll pop up in the top left corner and you can access it there. But really, that's really the only difference. Okay guys, so that's about probably all of the differences in iOS 9. If you found any other ones that I didn't mention, feel free to comment them down below. And remember, you can get the iOS public beta right now. Just go to beta.apple.com, register your Apple ID, and sign up from there. It'll give you a lot of instructions and pretty self-explanatory. So if you want to do this, something you'd like, now it is glitchy, it can mess up your phone, and you got to take that risk if you want to. But for me, I don't really have a lot to lose, so I went and did this, and I'm loving it right now. It's a cool thing to look at all your friends and say, hey, what are you running? Oh, iOS 8.4? Oh yeah, that's cool. Now iOS 8 or iOS 9, yeah, you can't even get this yet. I'm not gonna tell them they can't, but other than that, it's just really neat. And I hope you guys liked this video. If you want me to do more videos like this after my El Capitan video, which will be coming up in maybe a few days to a few weeks, I don't know. I have to go from there. See what my schedule really plans out. But if you like this video, make sure to thumbs up, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. But my name is Zach, and this is Tyrannosaurus Tex. And I really hope you like this video. And if you don't, just leave. We don't care. But I guess without further ado, have a good day, have a good week, have a good life. One about iOS 9 and the other about OS XL. Watching this 20... I guess without...